from behind the artist, Jay and I travel to St. Louis to learn the art of making beer at Squared One. And we get behind the scenes at Anheuser-Busch.
Hey John, thanks for letting us come here to Squared One. So tell me a little bit about yourself and the brewery here.
Well, I've been brewing here in St. Louis for the last 17 years. I'm a native, grew up in the St. Louis area. Both families moved, half from Italy, half from Germany in the late 1890s. One actually owned a winery. I started a winery out in the St. Charles area, which is a suburb of St. Louis. And so I've had fermentation in the blood for a couple generations.
So homebrewing is what made you want to make the jump to being a brewmaster.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I homebrewed for about 6 years.
Tell me a little bit about the brewing process.
Well, it's really simple. I joke with the owner all the time. He pays me a lot of money to do something with only 4 ingredients. Beer's made of water, malt, hops, and yeast. So it's been around forever. The question was always, which came first, the beer or civilization? Did we actually stop hunting, gathering because we liked beer so much we needed to grow more grain? Or did we grow more grain and then realize we can make beer with it? But I think they might have kind of come in hand. So it's been with us for quite a while, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Why don't you take me through the process we'll be doing today?
Well, it's a very simple process. The first 2 ingredients we're going to be using are water and malt. So really it's the malt that's going to determine the color of the beer. The amount of malt in the recipe is ultimately going to determine how much alcohol is in the beer as well. There's a lot of brewers' terms that are Old English, like Chaucer Old English or German, and the vessel that we use is called a mash tun. Tun is an Old English term for tank or vessel. And actually the tank that we use is a combination tank. It's not only a mash tun, but it's also what's called a lauter tun. Lauter is one of the old terms for how to separate the grain and the water. So we separate that liquid off, and then we actually rinse the grain with more hot water, another brewer's term, sparging. Once all that's out and cleaned up, we're bringing that sweet liquid in the kettle to a boil. And once it comes up to a boil, we're going to add the hops. That's the 3rd ingredient then in the beer. Hops balance the sweetness from the malt with bitterness. So that's the end of the boil then. All the hops are in at that point. We then want to cool that liquid down because the very last ingredient we're going to add is the yeast. And the last thing we want to do is, one, we can't put the yeast into a boiling liquid, we'll kill it. So we want to cool that down. We want to cool that, as the brewers call that, wort, another one of those funny Old English terms. W-O-R-T is wort for, that's the term for unfermented beer. That fermentation process, again, depends on whether it's an ale or a lager. Ales will ferment out, usually they're pretty much done within 7 to 10 days. Lagers can take 2 weeks or maybe a little bit longer. That's the primary fermentation, really just consuming the sugar by the yeast. Once that's done, we then go through a cold stabilization. We don't want to freeze it, but we want to get it so cold that the yeast and the protein settles out and clarifies the beer. Makes it easier to filter. So as we're dropping it to 33 degrees and we're adding carbonation pressure, we're building up carbonation in that beer in the fermenter, so that when it goes down into the serving vessel, which for us here at Squared One is down in the basement, that beer is completely carbonated and ready to go, so we don't have to add any finishing carbonation in the serving tank.
Sounds exciting, John. Do you think we'll get an opportunity to make a beer today?
Absolutely. We've actually got all the malt ready to go. We've got it measured out, weighed out, ready to go. The water's all set. We're actually going to be brewing our 7th anniversary beer today. Excited to actually show you physically how all this all comes together.
Okay, John, so what's the first step?
So we're actually going to go ahead and load the malt into our hopper here, and as soon as we get a couple bags in there, we're going to kick on this auger, and it's going to carry the grain up to this top tank, the mash tun, where we're going to mix it with hot water. So load away.
Time to load.
Just kind of a quick little, just kind of in and out, just trying to keep it from forming hard corner
Oh, I
balls.
see what you're saying. So do I want to keep it moving along the
Just
sides? here?
basically kind of mixing in the center, right where it's dropping. Just remember old days of going on a canoe float trips. So you're
Yes.
kind of doing that back there on the canoe.
I have a canoe. I live on a lake. I just, can you tell I don't use it a lot?
So you're going to want to speed that up just a little bit.
Yeah, I
so
can
that,
see it trying to bunch up a little
I
bit.
saw one. That's okay. So you're doing good. Don't blow out of energy too early here. You got
Oh.
ways to go still.
Do I really? I can't wait. Feeling it. It's hard work. I think I'd rather drink beer.
We're gonna let it sit. It'll probably take another minute or so,
Sure.
and then we'll check. What we're gonna do is we're gonna check the volume in here.
Okay.
That's what that dipstick is for.
Okay.
And so I'll let you do the dipstick.
Oh, yeah. It's a very technical apparatus you have there.
Oh, yeah,
John, I gotta tell you.
high-tech, absolutely. Obviously, this wouldn't fly at Anheuser-Busch. They would probably.
I mean, they may have a really large one, just made out of beechwood. I don't know.
Exactly.
So do you do a small batch first to get an idea what the flavor profile will be?
Yeah, about 310 gallons. So, no, my first batch was not good at all. Embarrassing to say that it tasted more like wine than beer. So.
Barley wine.
Exactly.
Making beer is messy work, and I had to clean up after mine. I don't think John thinks I'm doing a great job. In the end, we had a great time.
So, a couple weeks ago, this was breakfast cereal. And now that it's done fermenting and carbonating and it's been filtered, I present to you Liquid Laughter. Cheers.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
After Jay and I learned the art of making beer at Squared One, the crew and I have an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Anheuser-Busch with head brewmaster Jim Bickline.
Since you were kind enough to give us an unrestricted access to the brewery, I mean, what's the cool things that we can see that maybe not everybody else gets an opportunity to see?
Well, you're in one of them. I think the taste room, the zone taste panel is a place that we don't open up to many folks. And you can see it's kind of quiet in here, and that's so that we can focus on the taste of our beers. The other thing is we give you a tour around the brewery and go into certain places in our fermentation cellars and so forth that we'll take a walk in a little while and you get to see some places that other folks don't normally get to see.
Well, I'm excited about it because I mean I love beer and I love Anheuser-Busch products. I mean it's a plug for it. I mean I really do. How long have you been the brewmaster here?
Well, I've been the brewmaster here for about 3.5 years, but I've been an assistant brewmaster here for probably 10 years prior to that, and with the company for about 25. So I've been here in the St. Louis Brewery for a good part of my career.
So a lot of beer knowledge then.
Yes.
It's okay to say yes.
Well, I have to have, so and it's my passion, so it's easy to gain that knowledge when you're doing something that you love.
Well, on behalf of my liver, I want to thank you very much for that. What's cool about Anheuser-Busch?
To me, what the coolest thing about Anheuser-Busch is the hallmark of quality that we put into our beers. Every little detail along the way, we are so concerned about quality, and we never relent. We never give up on that. It's always in the front of our minds and the foremost a concern of ours, and so that's pretty cool to be part of that. And I've always enjoyed that part of the company.
I understand you do quality tasting from around the world right inside this very room.
We do. We taste all the Budweisers made around the world here every month here, and then every week in North America. So we have 18 or 19 samples that we taste in here every week on Bud and Bud Light, and evaluate those beers and make sure that they meet our quality standards.
is a good beer, though.
It is a very good beer.
This is the first step of the brewing process, called the mash cooker. Here we're converting all the starches to sugars and fermentable sugars.
Excellent.
So this is the first step of the process here.
Okay.
See, we got some cooking going on right now.
Yeah, I can feel the heat
Yeah,
off that.
feel some heat.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's go down, keep going down. We'll go down to the brew kettle floor.
Alrighty.
So we have 18 of these cookers, these mash cookers here. There's 18 of them, yes.
18.
Yeah. So here's the bottom of the cookers, and those are the mixers there.
Right.
And over here, what we have is a straining vessel. Now that's no longer in use, but it's the old lauter tubs. Lauter is to strain. It's a German word for to strain.
So all the beer that's being produced through all of these lined up, or what's going on here in the mash tanks now, go through one of those lauter tanks.
Yes, they'll all go. Each one of these batches will go through a lautering tank, and then it'll go to an individual brew kettle, and that's what we'll see next. And that's where you add the hops. So,
Okay.
And then we'll have here Natural Light. So these will be probably Columbus
Man, I
hops.
love that smell.
And here, go ahead and grab some.
Alrighty.
And rub them together in your hand. And to evaluate the aroma, you go ahead and cup your hand, and then smell them. Should smell a nice citrusy floral.
Gorgeous.
This is a portrait. There are two of these. Down when we come into the brew house, there's America, and then this is Germania. And so I think that's a pretty cool to be walking around a piece of art and a piece of history that was hung in the exhibition hall in the World's Fair.
And they're beautiful.
And they're beautiful. So it represents both the German and American heritage coming together to form Anheuser-Busch.
I love the smell.
Yeah,
I really do.
It's a flower. I mean, hops is a flower.
No, I mean the whole process.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody enjoys it, but I
Yeah,
do.
that's true. Yeah. If you go to work in a meat packing plant or something, it's a little different smell.
Yeah, just a bit.
When we come back, Jim takes us to some of their hidden secrets at Anheuser-Busch. Jim took us deep in the heart of the brewing process at Anheuser-Busch, and we just added hops to the beer. Now we head up to the fermentation bins where we add the yeast.
Every yeast strain provides a very unique flavor to every beer.
Right.
And so that's where the flavor of Budweiser comes from is that particular unique yeast strain. And it's the same strain that we've used since 1876, which was the original production of Budweiser.
Now I got a few strains myself in my body, but I don't want to keep them.
It's a different kind of strain.
But you know, on a serious note, how do you keep the strain alive?
That's exactly going to be
If
my
I can stop right here
question.
for a second, I mean, how do you keep the strain alive?
Well, you take care of it. You give the yeast a proper temperature. It has to stay in very tight temperature control. So when we get to the fermentation cell, you'll see that we have cooling jackets and we have a control system that controls the yeast to very specific temperatures.
Right.
And then you cool it down when you want it in between uses and to keep it dormant and take care of it. And then we monitor the health of it. And after we use it so many times and so many cycles, then we go ahead and get rid of it.
I know you're dying. Monitoring the health. How do you monitor the health of
Yeah, I
yeast?
know. Get out of my head.
Well, you look at it under a microscope, and you can tell by the way it looks that it's healthy.
Healthy. And
So
this
the
is
viability is all done through that.
The viability from the process is done by looking at it under a microscope and making sure that it's healthy.
microbiology in beer.
Makes good sense.
It does?
Yeah, that's right.
This is cool stuff.
I'm learning more every day.
I know.
That's just the first thing that hits me when I walked in. It's very much looking like, well, a colander, to be quite honest with you, looking at it.
Yeah. So these are the cones of the fermenter. Each of these fermenters hold about 5,800 barrels of beer.
Okay.
So that's 10 of the brews that we saw in the brew house.
And through this process, does the yeast collect down at the bottom?
It does. At the end of the process, after the beer is done with its primary fermentation, we open the valves to the cooling jackets, and then it cools the beer down, and then the yeast comes to the bottom, and then we draw that off for the next fermenter.
So, where do we go from here?
Well, we're going to go see the yeast springs. That's where we keep the famous Budweiser yeast.
Sounds great.
That'll be someplace that not many people get to see, so it should be a treat.
A great behind the scenes.
All right. No, I just get to wake up every day and come in and brew the thing that I love to make. I love to taste it too. Well, this is where it all happens. This is the fermentation cellar. So we do our primary fermentation in this building, and this is where it all becomes beer.
I can't wait to see it.
All right, let's go.
You can tell by the temperature which one's safe to open.
Yeah,
So that's being agitated as well.
it is. So it's being mixed up now.
You keep it at a constant temperature.
We do.
In order to,
The temperature is very important for yeast. If you let yeast heat up, it will open up and not ferment properly. So temperature is probably one of the most important process parameters that you have with yeast.
and so a sample is taken just to keep a picture of the viability of each of the yeast within the tanks? Or?
That's correct. We
Okay.
collect the sample and then we make sure that it's nice and healthy, and then we go ahead and reuse it.
I pledge to drink responsibly.
We're in the Brewing Process Control Center. So this is the building where we monitor the process from the very beginning, where we bring in the grain all the way through the filtration and packaging process. So it all kind of is monitored from this building here, and these gentlemen here are responsible for each segment of the process. What they're doing is making sure that all the recipes are exact, the temperatures are exactly what they need to be, and we're making Budweiser the exact same way to the exact recipe, and using a lot of technology to do that.
I can see what you mean. It's quality control, step by step, from the very beginning all the way to the finished product.
It is. We put a lot of emphasis on quality, and these guys do a great job monitoring that and making sure that it goes into each glass of Budweiser.
Thanks, Jim, for giving us an opportunity to come behind the scenes here at Anheuser-Busch.
Hey, it's great to have you here, and you guys are welcome back anytime.
Thank you again. Ass white.